Hello and welcome to this video. Today I'm going to turn this absolutely adorable frog mode from LPS into a cute wizard with a little scene. This is going to be my longest to date custom video for LPS after I did the fox and the cute griffin. And I'm really excited. This project was a lot of fun and I enjoyed both the repaint and the scene making quite a bit. So I'm starting out with a piece of clay and I'm cutting out like a sucker, and this is going to be the wizard hat. I blend in the edges nicely with my fingers, making sure that everything is nice and even and blended. And I'm actually using Sculpey Medium here because I don't need anything to blend in. With the figures I customized before, I changed like the appearance of the figures, and it means that the pieces needed to blend in with the figures themselves. You know, like changing up the nose or things like that of a character means that it needs to like really blend in with the face, and you cannot really bake the figures, so I had to use epoxy. With this stuff I can just like take off the hat after I shaped it to the figure and I can just glue it back on, since it doesn't need to be perfectly blended in. So after I had the rim fit onto the character, I made like a little cone shape out of aluminum foil and then added a layer of clay on top that I'm now going to blend in. And this is going to be the base of the hat. And then afterwards it was wrinkle time. I wanted this to look very whimsical, because I already had a great idea for the repaint too, and that means I wanted to add a lot of little wrinkles. This is going to be like a kind of felt hat, classic wizard style, so I added a lot of different size and girths of wormy dealies, and I'm going to blend them in nicely, and hopefully we're going to have like a nice like wrinkled top of this hat. I'm going to leave the rim as is. I'm not going to change anything or add any more texture. I'm really happy with the shape as is, but you know, I just wanted to add a nice bit of wrinkling to the top. I also made sure that the back is like a little bit curved when I add the head. Like I moved the actual head around so that I don't lose the wobble, the classic LPS wobble that the heads of the figures have. And for that I needed to like curve the back just a little bit more so that the hat would not be in the way. And after I achieved that, I put it in the oven to bake. Next up, it was time to make the scenery, and for that I needed some books. So I used my like square cutters here and cut the like outer covers to size, and I want to decorate at least the top of the books. The idea is basically I'm going to make a book stack and set the figure on top, and I wanted to like give it some ornation, and I found that this like hair clip has the perfect like kind of textures on top that when embedded in the clay it looks really nice. So that's what I did. I just pressed it into the clay from both sides to add like this cute decoration, and I'm obsessed with it. I think it looks absolutely nice and like magical. And then I wanted to add like a little trim border thing, so I also cut out these strips of clay, added a little bit of bacon bond to secure them, and then it was a lot of blending again. And these are a bit delicate, so if you have like thin strips of clay or something and you want to keep things like square or in shape, you really need to be careful while blending. And then after I finished that, I put it in the oven too, and it was time to work on the spine. I found that these like disposable chopstick things are perfect because they have like a flatter round over edge. So I cut out the spine to size, and then I carefully shaped it and added some divots as like decorations with just like a little brush round over and like a chopstick or like a little skewer thing. And that worked really nice, and of course that also gets to be baked, which I can actually do on the stick, which is super nice since that's wood. And while all of that was taking its time to cool off, I decided to also work on the base. And for this one I'm going to use Sculpey Original, since that's a bit more like sturdy. and a little bit tougher to like work, so I don't really like to use it for detailed works, but for like bases or like scenic things, I really like this stuff. Starting out to like map the like board pieces, and then I mark out like the little separations in it, and all I'm using here is like a straight edge of my cutter and my silicone shaper tool. The silicone shaper tool is honestly like my preferred sculpting thing. You can blend all the pieces that you want really nicely. You can smooth up things, add like nice bit of details, and they come in so many varying sizes. So yeah, I just used it to mark out the boards, and then I like aged the edges of the boards a little bit by like making some deeper crevices in them before adding the wood texture and trying to add some curved lines that are a bit thinner than the ones I added with the shaper tool. And I'm just using this like hook needle thing tool from my plotter, but any kind of like, I guess, needle or like thin ballpoint tool would work. And I'm trying to keep them like a bit more curved and random to make this really nice board texture. And as you can see, it worked out really well. We did lose some board definition, but after I like smoothed everything out with some isopropyl alcohol and a brush, I just add those back in with like a more broad like detail thing. And then I also add some like, I guess, nail holes with my like ballpoint tool. I'm using like this kind of IPA and brush method a lot to smooth out the fingerprints and like the surface of the clay before baking. It also removes dirt if you have colored clay, but since I'm painting my clay, I'm not too worried by this. And yeah, then it was time to assemble the books. Sadly, I lost part of the footage because it got corrupted, but luckily I made 2 more books, so here you can see how I made the bases of the books. I added some Sculpt Original in the middle essentially, glued like both sides on with some Bacon Bond, and made sure that the inside pages were like spaced out evenly on all sides but one where the spine hits. That one I like wanted it to like exactly be flush with the outside edge. And then I just used a wire brush to give it the book texture. And yes, there will be some little like clumps of clay building up, but after baking you can totally remove them. But this will give it the illusion of actually having separate pages. And then for these books I actually just added a simple spine. For the other one I took an extra step after I added this kind of simple spine, and I like basically made it to look like it's the ribbon that you sew in on the top and bottom edges of the pages, and then just added the other spine on top and blended that in. These are very simple, just adding the spine, curving it a little bit to the sides, blending it in. And this is actually why I wanted to pre-bake the covers, because it's much easier to keep them straight while adding all the extra details and the pages inside. I also added a little bit of decoration on one of the other books. Just with my silicone shaper, I wanted to keep it really simple. And then of course it was more baking time. And in the midst of all that, I also needed to make more decorations, so I mixed up some 2-part epoxy resin, and I'm going to make some little potion vials and things like that, and a little like magic like crystal ball thing. So I'm starting off with some pigment powders. These are just mica powders and resin, like a blue, a teal and a pink, to give it like an almost color shift thing. And then I'm just adding that into my vial. I have some iridescent pearls in there. And I also make a small sphere with some black, blue and clear. And this is just the same like blue mixture that I used for the vial. And it should hopefully like give a nice little magic sphere. I also added like some more of the like magenta pink pigment in there to give it some more variation. I want this to swirl essentially when it hardens. And while I was curing, it was more sculpting time, and this time I'm actually going to use color clay because I need to make some little plants and herbs, or I want to make them, because I thought that a little touch of like greenery would really fit into the theme. So I'm going to make some lavender and then some random other like sprig of herb. So I'm rolling out like some little balls of purple clay and some little like sprigs to go in the middle. And also I'm making some leaves with my silicone shaper tool, a ballpoint pen, and like my kneader tool. And these leaves are super thin, so I'm using like silicone based, so I don't have to touch them because I can easily like soften them too much with the warmth of my hand. But having like a silicone base actually worked super well. And it was time to assemble, and I just, you know, after baking, just used some super glue, and that was very fiddly, but I knew that it was better than trying to add some bacon bond and have them flop all over, since like super glue dries faster. So I positioned all the like little like flowery bits of the lavender, and then also the little leaves on the other stem. And yeah, it took a while, it was fiddly, I got super glue all over my hands, but I think it was very well worth it because they look so cute. And of course, what is a magician without some manuscripts that give you some information about the things you're using, being a potion ingredients or magical spells. So I also weathered a piece of paper, just some like printer paper that I used some watercolors on. And while that was drying, it was time to paint the books. So I added some like leather brown to my bookcases and to the hat. I'm going to vary the colors here, but especially the main one I want to look like it's very well leather bound. And then to make it actually look like leather, I'm adding like a lighter orangey brown on top, and I'm using a sponge here to get it like to look textured and a little bit more worn. And I love this method. It looks super nice and it looks super weathered without being too much effort that you need to put in. And for the hat I decided I just want a darker color actually, because I thought having the same brown tone as the book wouldn't work quite that nicely, so I mixed up a little bit of red and like a little bit more brown to get like this purplish brown. And then for the other books I just mixed a little bit of red into like the brownish color. I want this to still look like leather stained, so I'm keeping like the brown base that I kept for the others, the leather brown, and just mixing in like greens and reds. And then I'm doing the same method, just picking up a like lighter color and stippling it on top. And you know, it has this, again, this really nice like leather effect. I don't need to cover the whole books technically, but because I don't know how I'm going to position them, I'm making sure to just paint all of the edges. And yeah, by the end of it I have some nice looking book covers. The same I also did for the hat, just that I actually added some darker brownish black tones and stippled those on before giving it a nice dark wash. And then I'm going to go over it again with a sponge later to add some highlights, just with the like original like purplish brown that I made. The base was fairly simple too, but I wanted to add some variation in it with the boards, like kind of make it look like they just picked up random types of wood to make this flooring, whatever they had laying around. So I painted it black to give it a nice base, added some brown, added like a little bit of like stippling of like a lighter brown with my sponge, and then I'm actually picking out some boards and I'm using like washes of a more like cream yellow and red tone that I'm just applying over it, and those will give like a little bit of differentiation between the words. And then I'm just adding some more black wash and letting that dry, and the wash is going to like really highlight all the details. Now the plants were again very fiddly, but since they were like one color clay, I wanted to give them more of a natural look, so I hit them with like a little bit of different shades of green, add like the leaf veins, add like a little bit of like purple on top to make it look more like lavendery, while still keeping some of the lighter tones, and then also like darkening the green and making the like flowery bits blend in with the stem a bit more by adding like a little touch of green on the bottom of each and every one. This actually took quite a while, so I shortened it for you guys, but yeah, painting all these pieces took ages. And then of course I also needed to paint the book pages white. I'm just using a very sharp like brush here, and all the paints I'm using, by the way, are model paints, so they are nice and covering. I prefer the Vallejo brand for my adventures, but there's a lot of good brands out there. And by everything else right, I could finally actually write something on the manuscript. And I tried to like just do some scribbles with like a fine liner, but I wanted to like space them out how text would be spaced out with like the separate words and like, you know, all like kind of the spacing of however text looks. I actually took some references and I think it looks very convincing. And then it was finally time to paint the LPS figure. I did the same thing that I did with all the others. I shaved off any erasing spots, which was mainly like the logo in the back, since that was cast on, and I also removed all the shiny bits, which in this case was the eyes with like just some pure acetone. I let it soak in and then just wiped it off. And then it was time for painting. I'm coating this figure again in a layer of Mod Podge, or in this case decoupage, essentially the same thing, like a glue and lacquer mixture to help the paint stick. And I also mixed in a little bit of white again so I can see where I'm applying it. And then I'm going to actually directly go in, not with the base color, but with the colorful pieces. I was inspired by some like rainforest frogs that I saw that have some really, really colorful stripes, and I wanted to make them galaxy. So I'm starting out by stippling on a blue here, and like galaxy or nebulas have like this like more foggy effect, so I'm trying to use like brushes that are more frayed out and like stippling things on, blending things in. So the dark blue is like the base for that, and then I'm going to add some purple and some pink on top, and then a little bit more pink, and those are going to hopefully look really nice and galaxy-esque. And the reason why I started with the stripes and not the black is, first of all, I can get them a bit more vibrant with less coats if I apply them on a lighter base. But also I found it easier to map out the colorful spots as the markings of the frog first, so, you know, this was like kind of an easier start, since this is a not that easy repaint to tackle if you want it to look like an actual like frog pattern, but still like very colorful. Now galaxies of course are stars, but I didn't want to add like stars everywhere, so I wanted to only add them on the colorful parts, just to not overwhelm everything with them. So I'm sprinkling on just some diluted white paint here. And then I wanted to make the bits and pieces like a little bit color shift, because I have these nice color shift paints. These are actually for airbrushes, these are also Vallejo. I chose like a pink to like blue one, and you can absolutely brighten them with brushes, they would just not be as intense. So I added like 2 very subtle coats. You can only see it if you're like actually like shifting the figure in the light, so they don't really take away too much from the original colors. They just made them a little bit darker. So and they absolutely covered the like white speckles of the stars, so I had to just do them again. But afterwards I could let all dry and then add the black part. And I took my time with this. While the other parts I had like a bit more liberty and like placement and just be like a little bit more, you know, less careful with my brush. This was where like everything like was like very nerve-wracking, because I had to be very, very, very exact on where I wanted everything to be, or else I would have to repaint entire sections of the pattern, and I really didn't want that. So I use a very fine brush here, and this took me over half an hour to just get the outlines of the black and fill everything in. I'm also going to add some black base paint to the eyes just to blend them in for now and give them a bit of contrast before I paint them. But there was also some more like darker markings that I added with the black, and after all that was done, and after everything was dried fully, I could finally apply the eyes. And in this case again, since like almost everything is going to be covered by the iris anyways, I'm just adding like a slight bit of white for the white of the eyes, and I'm using like the same painting method that I used for my first LPS customs too, where I add like a white strip and then colorful strips. And I chose a very vibrant pink here with like an even lighter pink on top as like my eye colors, because I thought they would match nicely with the galaxy effect but still stand out really well. And then I added the black back in to define everything. It looks very easy in the video, but I definitely had to go in multiple times to correct lines, especially like the outline of the eyes, since the mold was a bit more like sharp edge there than some of the others that I painted before. And I mispainted the black multiple times and had to go in with pinks back and forth, but for you guys, like sanity and my sanity, I cut that out. And then I just added some eye shines. And as always, they gave my figure like so much more life, and it looks so cute. But we're not done yet, we still have to assemble the whole diorama. So here's the magic crystal ball that I made, and it looks really, really nice. I also needed to add some labels onto the bottles, so I just weathered some more paper and then written like a little label on top. Before gluing that on, I'm using like Yoo-hoo glue here. Yoo-hoo is actually, this glue is like an epoxy based glue, but you don't have to mix it. It has like the hardener inside, and it just needs to evaporate the solvent. So it's really nice for sticking like practically anything together, and it also works nice with like glass. Use the same glue for the little decoration bits on the glass. I just added some like twine on there to make it look a little bit more nice and less boring. And then I could assemble everything. While painting and putting it aside, the base sadly broke along one of the like groove lines where, you know, the floor meets, and it was fine. I kind of expected that to happen. I made it a little bit too thin, so I just used a scrap piece of wood, of balsa wood here, glued it on top, and then I could finally place everything. I did pre-place things like before gluing them down, just while having them laying on the desk, but I still wanted to reposition the crystal ball a little bit after I had it set in place. Luckily the super glue didn't dry yet, so I could just remove it again and like replace the jars there. But I wanted this to look like a working desk essentially. That's like a little bit crowded, so everything is like super like scattered, and we have the manuscript with the plants there. I tried to mimic the like plants that I drew on the script, like make the match with one of the sprigs that I actually sculpted essentially, just to make everything tied together nicely. And then after I glued in the book stack and everything else, I could finally like cut down the wood. Of course all the other pieces fell down, so I had to re-glue them after I painted the edges, but that was totally fine. And then I hit everything with 3 good layers of matte varnish. I'm using the Molotov varnish. I really like that one. It works super well. And after that I applied some glossy nail polish to the eyes. Again, only do that, I always mention that with the figures, only do that after you apply multiple coats of varnish, and be very careful because it can completely wipe and remove acrylic paint. But it gives it such a nice sheen without needing resin or anything. And of course here's the result, and yeah, it turned out really cute and cool. I am obsessed with this figure. I already love my other repaints a lot, especially the fox, since foxes are my favorite animals, but this guy is just top tier with all the sculptures and decorations I made and shown you guys. He looks adorable and beautiful. Again, the galaxy effect and the color shift, like the galaxy effect like takes away from the color shift, but like when it turns you can still see the blue and purple. It's like shifting a little, and it's so pretty and shiny, and also with the like little stars just being over the galaxy. I think it looks so nice while still keeping the like poison frog patterns that I chose. And then, you know, having all the little ingredients there, the like little jar with like dried flowers, the little potion, the crystal ball, and the little sprigs and the manuscripts and the books. I just think it looks so nice, and I can like really imagine this to be like on a like wizard's desk, and this little frog, it's like the wizard's apprentice that just, you know, learns from him, like trying to gather ingredients, making small potions, learning from the books. Obviously, like scaling wise, the books would be really tiny still for like a human, but maybe it's another animal that's just slightly larger than the frog, so the book sizes would actually match. But yeah, again, this was so much fun. But anyways, let me know in the comments down below what you think of this costume. And let me know what kind of like creature would you turn into a wizard if you had the choice. Like my choice again obviously fell into a frog, but there's many different animals and creatures out there that I think would make great little wizards apprentices or wizards themselves. And as always, I hope you have a great day. See you next time. Bye bye!